Welcome back to the Hardware Unboxed News Corner. With Thanksgiving in the United States this week, there hasn't been a ton of news, but it wouldn't be an episode of News Corner without at least a few interesting stories, so I guess let's get right to it. One of the more controversial issues to emerge this week concerns AMD's Ryzen Mobile and its driver support. There hasn't been a lot of public discussion about Ryzen Mobile drivers, but anyone that owns or has owned a Ryzen Mobile laptop knows that the driver situation is a complete mess. While Ryzen Mobile does include a Radeon GPU anywhere from Vega 3 up to Vega 11, most systems using the APU haven't seen a single driver update for the platform since launch. This is problematic for a number of reasons. Firstly, Ryzen Mobile as a first generation platform shipped with quite a few bugs, some of which I noted in my review of the APU almost a year ago. Things like Premiere and Blender not supporting GPU acceleration, some weird graphical effects in games, issues with changing resolutions, VLC issues, and more. To not get a single driver update since launch means all of these issues are still present in laptops using Ryzen Mobile right now. Secondly, buyers of Ryzen Mobile systems are missing out on the numerous driver optimizations that AMD has included in their drivers over the past year, which are fully accessible to those with desktop APUs or discrete GPUs from the company. So any performance uplifts in games, or even proper support for games in the first place, are not available for Ryzen Mobile. That's basically where Ryzen Mobile drivers are currently at, and naturally this has been a source of frustration for buyers. Well, I guess I say frustration, that's putting it a bit nicely, I guess. Judging by Reddit comments, people are absolutely furious at the state of drivers right now, which I guess is fair enough considering the issues. Anyway, AMD made Ryzen Mobile owners even more furious with a statement this week suggesting they are working with OEMs to deliver a twice annual update of graphics drivers specifically for all AMD Ryzen Mobile processor-based systems. They go on to say that because the drivers are ultimately controlled by OEMs, this may vary from platform to platform, but we want to put out a clear goal for us and our OEM partners, and that drivers would be available through OEM websites, not AMD.com. Now, on face value, 2 driver updates a year is better than 0, but clearly 2 updates a year isn't really good enough, and considering they're still going to be delivered by OEMs who are completely hopeless when it comes to these things, who knows whether that will even eventuate. And it seems the community agrees with this, because one of the top upvoted posts on AMD right now is a big complaint about the state of drivers and this response from AMD. However, there is maybe some good news for Ryzen Mobile owners. I spoke with someone from AMD earlier this week who was a bit frustrated with the company's official response because of its vague wording, which seems to have caused the community to go into meltdown. The vagueness comes from the final sentence, which reads, "In addition, AMD will continue to evaluate ways in which we can offer validated graphics drivers for AMD Ryzen Mobile processor-based notebooks aligned to the latest AMD software updates, and we will provide updates as soon as we are able." Now, if you read that part of the statement, it just sounds like a nothing fluffy promise with no specifics whatsoever. AMD is always working towards better drivers, so it's not exactly a groundbreaking announcement. However, I have a lot of additional information on how Ryzen Mobile drivers are shaping up in the future, so let's talk about what it sounds like the plans are. Firstly, AMD are without a doubt working towards getting Ryzen Mobile graphics drivers released in line with their discrete desktop cards. This means that at some point in the future, Ryzen Mobile GPU driver updates will be available from AMD.com and will be launched around the same time of their desktop equivalents. This is basically how it works with both Intel and Nvidia GPU drivers for laptops. The twice annual driver update is referring to a separate update package that will be available through OEMs. The way it was described to me, this sounds like a long-term driver with full OEM support, something that you could revert back to in case of any issues, that sort of thing. Again, this is, I guess, fairly typical in the OEM space. The OEM itself will provide a baseline supported driver through their website, while each component manufacturer, for example, Realtek with HD audio drivers, might offer a newer version that users can download through their website. Currently, the issue is OEMs occasionally update their supported drivers for things like audio and Wi-Fi, but they have not been updating their APU and GPU drivers. So the twice annual update is a way to accelerate that process. But the big change will come when AMD begins offering a separate GPU update package through AMD.com. This is what the final line of their statement is supposed to be referring to. It might say the company is merely evaluating ways in which they can offer those drivers and will provide updates as soon as they are able. But from what AMD told me, those driver releases are more a case of when, not if. Now, You might be asking yourself, why can't AMD just upload Ryzen Mobile GPU drivers to AMD.com right now? We know we can hack current drivers to install on Ryzen Mobile and they work just fine. I think that's a pretty good question. So the issue comes down to a number of things, but the primary one is the way OEM drivers are distributed. Specifically, OEM drivers are often tied into the Windows Update framework. So when you purchase a laptop that's, say, been sitting on the shelf for a while, it will automatically update to the latest OEM supported drivers. Some OEMs also have separate utilities that will download official OEM drivers. The main obstacle appears to be in this OEM driver delivery system. AMD said that there are issues where even if you installed an official GPU driver from AMD.com, the OEM system, whether that's Windows Update or an OEM utility, would simply overwrite and reinstall an older OEM supported driver instead. So AMD needs to work with OEMs and presumably Microsoft as well to stop that from happening before they're willing to provide drivers through AMD.com. It might be an excuse, but this is something I've had issues with on some laptops, not necessarily for GPU drivers, but certainly Windows Update attempting to revert back to older drivers. That issue does crop up from time to time. As for a timeline on when this might get resolved, it sounds like AMD is targeting the launch of next generation Ryzen mobile processors sometime in 2019. Yep, that could be some time away, but it's a better time frame than the complete lack of a time frame AMD gave in their statement. And to clarify, this doesn't mean only next gen Ryzen mobile laptops will be able to download these AMD provided drivers. Rather, that's just around the time when these drivers should be available to all. Now, I'm not saying that all of this will definitely happen, it's just what AMD was telling me when I asked a number of clarifying questions about their statement. And with Ryzen Mobile, I'm not sure we're in a position where we can fully trust what they are saying, but if what they are saying is the truth, it sounds like there is genuine work being made towards fixing the Ryzen Mobile driver ecosystem. As with first generation ecosystems, which are very raw, there has been certainly a lot of early adopter pain with this one, and a lot of the blame does have to go to the OEMs as well, which are generally hopeless at getting out these driver updates. But we'll see how it progresses, and hopefully there's good news coming in 2019. Enough talk about drivers. Content adaptive shading, also known as variable rate shading, has come to Wolfenstein 2, the new Colossus. This new shading technology is exclusive to Nvidia's Turing architecture for now, and it works in quite an interesting way. It basically allows the shading engine to shade some areas of the screen at non-native rates if it's appropriate to do so. So for example, some areas of the screen that would exhibit no quality loss from less than native rate shading, like say the sky in a game, could be shaded at a quarter of the rate or perhaps even 1/16 of the rate with no difference to visual quality. However, by shading at a lower rate, performance could be improved. Anyway, this feature is now available in the latest version of Wolfenstein 2 and the Tech Report have tested it. It's worth reading their entire article to get a full description of how this tech works and the full performance breakdown, but their benchmarking showed up to a 7% performance improvement with the feature enabled for practically no quality loss, even using the performance preset that gave the highest performance uplift. They're certainly very impressive, though of course using this feature requires developers to implement support. Nvidia are bundling Battlefield 5 with select GeForce RTX graphics card purchases. If you buy an RTX 2080 Ti, RTX 2080, or RTX 2070 between now and January 7th, 2019 at a participating retailer while stocks last, you will receive a game code for Battlefield 5 that can be redeemed up until January 31st, 2019. That's a nice value add to GeForce RTX cards if you happen to want to play Battlefield 5 and also you don't already own it. Clearly Nvidia are bundling this game because it includes ray tracing support, though I imagine most people will play with RTX enabled for a few seconds before disabling the feature and just enjoying the very decent performance you'll get in the game with Nvidia's current generation GPUs. Acer has unveiled 7 new KG1 gaming displays, all with apparently sub 1 millisecond response times. These displays do use TN panels to achieve these types of responses, and it appears the metrics Acer are quoting do refer to grey to grey responses, not black frame insertion, fake specs, or anything like that. These monitors range from 0.5 milliseconds to 0.8 millisecond response times depending on the exact model. All feature 1000:1 contrast ratios, weak viewing angles, which is typical for a TN, and FreeSync. Brightness ranges between 250 and 400 nits, again depending on the model. As for the exact 7 models, the lineup is split into 3 sizes: a single 23.6 inch display, 3 24.5 inches, and 3 27 inches. The 23.6 incher has a maximum 144Hz refresh rate, while the 24.5 and 27-inch variants are available in 75, 144, and 240Hz models. G.Skill has officially launched their Trident Z Royal RGB memory they first announced at Computex. The DDR4 RAM is available from 3000 CL16 speeds up to 4600 CL18 speeds, with the usual steps available in between. Both 8GB and 16GB modules are available in a variety of kits. The interesting thing about this memory is the use of either shiny silver or gold metal heat spreaders with a crystal top section for shimmery RGB effects. Certainly that'll add a bit of bling for those that like bling in their builds, I guess. No word on pricing for the memory just yet, but we expect it to be G.Skill's most expensive memory in their lineup. Final story from this week, an Nvidia GeForce RTX 2060 was spotted in the Final Fantasy 15 benchmark database. This could be a faked entry, or it could legitimately be a card that's in the works that someone accidentally benchmarked publicly. In any case, it's a little unusual that the card is RTX branded, considering the RTX 2070 isn't really suitable for ray tracing as it is. I'd certainly hate to think how an RTX 2060 would perform with even more RT cores removed from the equation. Maybe Nvidia are just using RTX across their entire lineup. Maybe this leak isn't a legitimate leak. If it turns out the product is real, the RTX 2060 is positioned just below the GTX 1070 in the charts, but handily above the GTX 1060 6GB. So we'll see how that pans out if the card ever comes out as an RTX 2060. Anyway, that's it for this week's News Corner. As always, you can subscribe to get this segment in your inbox every week. Well, I guess I say every week, but some weeks we actually don't push out a News Corner and instead cover other more interesting stuff. And then there was that one week where I made 2 News Corners. Well, I guess just subscribe and you get News Corner from time to time. You can also support us on Patreon to get access to our Discord chat and monthly live streams, and I'll catch you in the next one.